Hey there gang, Kawaii50 back with another Fate Grand Order video, and it is time, finally time, to talk about Fate Requiem's beloved Voyager. That's right, this is a spacecraft. This is a spacecraft that has become a servant. Though after the likes of Azure Lane and Kantai Collection, honestly, nothing should really surprise you at this point. We're going to be going over allies, craft essences, and command codes to make sure that your little Voyager, your bestest boy, is going to be able to sail far beyond the stratosphere on your team. So hopefully this video helps you out, and if it does, be sure to go ahead, like, and subscribe. So even though in Fate Requiem, Voyager's class is Voyager, for the purposes of Fate Grand Order, his class is Foreigner. He's got 2 quick, 2 arts, and 1 buster card with an AoE quick type Noble Phantasm. His max HP is fairly high at 15,592, which is a pretty excellent boon considering a lot of things are going to be hitting him for neutral damage. And his max attack of 10,450 is pretty solid as well. NP per hit is solid at a 0.56, and his star absorption is a little on the higher side at 153, so you can expect some of those stars he's generating to go right back into his cards. Voyager's first skill is Voyager of the Stars, rank A. This gives him a 30 to 50% NP charge, 3 turns of debuff immunity, as well as 10 critical stars. Mainly because of that 50% NP charge, which is very, very important, you're going to want to go ahead and max this skill first before any else, because, well, Voyager's got a quick AoE Noble Phantasm, and that makes him a prime farming servant with the support of Skahawk Scotty. So getting that little bit of extra charge can mean the difference between 3 turning and 4 turning a stage. You're going to want to maximize that as soon as possible. Voyager's second skill is Swing By, rank A. This gives him 1 instance of evade that doesn't fall off if he doesn't get hit. It also increases his quick card effectiveness by 10 to 20% for 3 turns, and decreases the quick resist of a single enemy by 10 to 20% for 3 turns. Kinda similar to the recently released Romulus Quirinus doing extra damage to a single character on the enemy team. So you definitely want to target the enemy's best with this skill. We're going to go ahead and max this skill second, mainly for the damage boost that we're going to get off of those quick cards. And Voyager's final skill is Blessings from the End of the World Cosmos, rank B. This gives one ally a 300 to 600% boost to their critical star gather rate. It also increases all allies' critical strength and critical rate resist, which means they are going to get crit far, far less. So those are some really solid boosts tied to this skill. We are still going to go ahead and max this last. Not because it's bad by any means, don't think I'm going that way, but mainly because this skill is actually pretty solid as it is out of the box, and we're going to go ahead and increase its effectiveness. Those other 2 skills are just higher priority when it comes to really making them work for you. For Voyager's Append skill, we're going to mainly focus on mana loading because that solid 10 to 20% starting MP charge is good on absolutely every character in the game. Not much more I need to say. And now we move on to Voyager's Noble Phantasm, Pale Blue Dot, rank B, which, such a cool thematic name for a Noble Phantasm. I absolutely love it. This deals 600 to 1,000% damage to all enemies and deals additional special attack damage to enemies with the Heaven trait. This also increases the NP gauge for all allies by 20%, but if that ally is a pseudo-servant, they're going to be getting an additional 10% on top of that. We'll talk about a couple of those in the allies section. And this has the much desired overcharge effect, at least for me, when it comes to increasing NP strength, and this activates before damage is dealt. So you're going to be seeing that bonus in the Noble Phantasm absolutely immediately. As it is with most Noble Phantasms in this game, NP2 is going to see the biggest boost for your buck, but that's really all dependent on your luck, which I wish you good luck summoning for Voyager. When it comes to Voyager's allies, of course, as an AoE quick type servant, Skahawk Scotty is going to be your go-to. But there are some other servants you can, of course, pair this little prince with. These servants I'm going to recommend in the following section are either servants for players that haven't been playing the game for very long, so we're looking at a more free-to-play style of servant, lower rarity, as well as servants of higher rarity that can definitely benefit from the bonus he gives to pseudo-servants. So let's go ahead and take a look at those now. And we're going to kick off this list with Young Alexander. Young Alexander has 2 skills that Voyager can definitely get bonuses from. Omen of the Conqueror will grant him a solid quick card effectiveness boost, and Fair Youth Thunder rank A actually provides some excellent utility as well. This has the ability to remove buffs from a single enemy, so if an enemy chucks on an evade or an invincibility, you can just have Alexander strip that buff and Voyager go in for the kill. Wu Zetian is also an incredible servant to pair with Voyager. She has received so many buffs that many would honestly call her the best 4-star assassin in the entire game. And at the bare minimum, I will say she's definitely up in the top 5, without question. Her Wise Empress skill can give Voyager a critical strength boost and an NP damage boost. She has the ability to nullify an enemy's buff while decreasing their defense and burning them. And of course, she is a solid supporter when it comes to quick servants, granting an attack boost and quick card effectiveness boost. Plus, she generates stars off of her Noble Phantasm and her quick cards. What more could you really ask for out of a 4-star servant? I do need to recommend Osakabe Hime, since she also has the buff stripping and defense reduction, and she's also able to grant Voyager NP charge, a critical star drop rate boost, and a massive critical strength boost to all of her allies. On top of that, there is of course her Noble Phantasm, granting everyone quick and buster card effectiveness. Even though Voyager only has a single buster card, this is still a very useful Noble Phantasm for him to be hit by. And now let's start to get into these pseudo-servants, 2 servants who were able to get a solid 10% NP boost off of Voyager's Noble Phantasm that actually also work fairly well with him. The first, of course, being Zhuge Liang. I know you didn't really think Zhuge Liang could get any better, but our boy Waver is actually able to benefit from a Voyager's boost. He's a pseudo-servant. He is absolutely a pseudo-servant. So granting Waver an extra 30% NP gauge to use the unreturning formation is going to help you a lot when it comes to either any sort of farming or challenge quest runs. Definitely consider him. And speaking of someone that's helpful in challenge quests, let's of course go with Jinako. Jinako is a pseudo-servant, so she will gain the benefit from Voyager's Noble Phantasm. And she can also provide Voyager with quite a few buffs, an NP gauge boost, attack boost, and critical stars gained per turn. On top of that, she can also pull all of the hate off of Voyager and force the enemy to attack her. With a skill like this, Voyager can of course bank that single use of evade he has for something that's going to be far more important than a random hit that unfortunately strips it away. You can have it still on for like a Noble Phantasm in a couple of turns. Isn't that absolutely phenomenal? I keep telling people not to sleep on Jinako, and I just hope that a lot of you believe me. She's honestly helped me out immensely. Let's talk about some craft essences, starting with the freebie options. So in the event that Voyager is going to initially show up in, there is actually a craft essence in the shop that can help him called Looking Up at the Starry Sky. This will grant quick card effectiveness, NP gain, as well as some critical stars every single turn. Be sure that you end up nabbing this from the shop, especially if you are a player that has not been playing the game for years like me. Having these event craft essences is going to be very, very helpful for your future and will really help pad your craft essence roster until you end up getting lucky in the gacha. I've actually got to mention another craft essence called Can't Fight on an Empty Stomach. You may have seen this show up in the recent rerun of the Guda Guda Final Hanoji event. This grants Arts card effectiveness, quick card effectiveness, and critical strength, all bonuses that your Voyager is absolutely going to love. But of course, it's not just all honey and rainbows. We have to go into the pay-to-play options. Of course, K-Scope is the absolute apex you're going to want for Voyager if you are taking him along on any bit of farming. But there is also another recommendation I have for you when it comes to anything like challenge quests, and that is Devilish Bodhisattva. This of course grants a couple levels of NP charge the first time you use Voyager's Noble Phantasm, and that NP overcharge is tied to his NP damage, so you're going to be seeing a nice boost on that very first NP you fire off. Just be sure that you stack him up with as many buffs as humanly possible. And now finally, let's get to the command codes. For Voyager's single buster card, I like chucking on a little bit of utility. So my first pick for that would be Mage of Flowers. This increases Voyager's NP gauge by 10%. Since you aren't really getting any NP off of those buster cards normally, you might as well give them something flat to make up for it. If you don't have or don't want to use Magus of the Flowers, I would recommend something like White Vessel's Command Seal or Code Cure to cleanse any sort of debuffs Voyager may unluckily get. When it comes to those quick cards, I definitely want to throw some critical star absorption on those, because that is Voyager's main source of damage. That enemy's getting a quick resist debuff. We want to maximize those quick cards and use them whenever they pop up. Viva La France is my recent recommendation. This will grant you critical star absorption plus 100% on the engraved card, and will also recover the party's HP by 100. It's a nice little bonus, but anything that draws stars to those quick cards is going to help. I also have a couple of recommendations when it comes to the Noble Phantasm. Pretty much any sort of NP damage booster. Da Vinci Chan works really well. Use this before you use the Noble Phantasm. The damage trade-off is going to be worth it. I can also recommend Empress of the Hanging Gardens. This grants NP damage plus 10% and 2 critical stars, which Voyager's of course going to use immediately. And finally, I want to recommend the recently released Destructive Star on JP. This grants an NP damage boost for 1 turn, but it also increases the card's damage against Sky attribute enemies or Heaven attribute enemies by 10%. Voyager already deals extra damage to those enemies, so go ahead and tack on a little more. Really make that boost work for you. Overall, gang, I do think Voyager is an excellent pick to add to your roster. New players especially will want to at least take a little bit of a shot at him, considering he is a foreigner class servant, and you want at least one of every single extra class servant. All of those servants are very important and can really help you out in later stages of the game. If you already have any sort of foreigner, he is not necessarily as immediate a concern, and I do want to caution everyone watching this video that Caster Artoria is around the corner, and she is definitely the #1 priority when it comes to summoning for the year. But if you have a little extra quartz available, you maybe need another quick farmer, you maybe need some sort of foreigner on your team, there are absolutely worse servants you could roll for. Voyager himself is a very fine servant. It's just unfortunately, right on the heels of him is one of the most powerful servants ever released in Fate Grand Order. That is unfortunately not doing him any favors. But if you ever have an opportunity to roll for him in the future, I would say he is definitely worth your Saint Quartz. But of course I want to know what you all think, so let me know your thoughts about Voyager down in the comments section below. Let me know if you think there are any allies, craft essences, or command codes that I might have missed. And if you've been using Voyager on JP, go ahead and let everyone know how effective he's been on your team to everyone that strictly plays NA. Let's of course talk about these characters together and help each other enjoy the game. And if you want to talk more about the game, my Discord server is of course always open. I want to give a big thanks to the patrons on Patreon, subscribers and followers over on Twitch, and of course all of you subscribers on YouTube. You are the motivation that makes me sit down in my chair and record and piece together these videos. So seriously, thank you. Anyways gang, this is Kawaii50, hoping you all have a phenomenal day, and I'll see you all in the next video.